All right, people, what's up? It's another episode of Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay.
I'm Pat.
I'm Jay. Welcome, audience. Tonight's episode, they all come back, don't they? Pat, what are we talking about here?
Once again, another version of relationships.
All right, so they all come back means that you broke up with someone and at some point in the future they come back looking for a second chance. Is that pretty much it, or is it that they're looking to see what you're doing, how it is, where you are in life? What are we talking about when we say they all come back?
Let's go. Step one, or phase one.
You break up.
But let's talk about what it was.
Okay.
If it was a real relationship,
okay,
well, they're all real. Even quickies are relationships. Even
right.
one night stands relationships. But a relationship that was fruitful for a while. The person that comes back after the breakup, are they the person that initiated the breakup?
Right.
Are they the person that was broken up with?
Right.
Was it a mutual breakup?
Right.
Is it a situation where one person was ready for a full committed relationship?
Right.
The other wasn't. They broke up.
Right.
Now, the other person that wasn't is like, I'm ready now. I think he or she's the one that got away. Maybe they're still ready. And I were ready at the same time. So in those situations, hey, how you doing? It's genuine and they want to see how you're doing. But everybody has an angle. Everybody has a motive. You, me, everybody. It's not an ulterior motive always, but there's always an angle or a motive. Mm-hmm. So that person's checking in, but they're checking in with the goal of seeing if you guys can get back together.
Okay.
So that's one scenario.
Okay.
Second scenario, again, it starts with what was the relationship. That was some good sex. Me and this person used to meet and fuck. That was the extent of our relationship. The conversations were, where do you want to meet? What time is good for you? I don't even remember why we stopped fucking. What happened? Did we get too busy with our schedules no longer, compatible? I don't know, but I want to hit it again.
Right.
That person, it can happen at any time.
Okay.
You can get the call 6 months later. You can get the text 4 years later.
Mm-hmm.
3 years later. Because no one forgets a good sexual experience.
Okay.
People will forget a bad one.
Right.
Or intentionally bury it so deep.
Right.
But no one forgets how somebody made them feel.
Right.
Sexually. Here's the funny thing when you merge both of those examples.
Mm-hmm.
A person could have only had a sexual relationship with somebody. Then they fall off. And then for some reason, years later, now they want to be married or something. And they're trying to think they don't have any prospects in their current life. And they think, well, that person used to fuck me well. Maybe they have marriage potential.
Right.
So even if before the breakup, it was just about sex, when they reach out to you, there's a possibility that's no longer their angle.
Right. So I'm looking at it from the angle that the breakup could have been disastrous, or it could have been amicable. But what is important is that the relationship before the breakup obviously had to have some type of bond. And over time, the strength of that bond is what brings the people back to each other. So there's an initial separation, you go your separate ways, you have to experience life, you have to see what else is out there. But all the time you're kind of comparing it to what that experience was with that person. And at a certain point, you realize that regardless of what anybody else has to offer, what you had with that person based on that bond, it pulls you back, whether you like it or not. And so therefore you have to look at when they come back from the standpoint of, was it an invisible string all along when they walked away that, they were attached to? And so when they come back, the reason why it's they all come back, don't they? Because it's just a matter of how long it takes for them to come back. And I think that when it's a really, really tough emotional breakup, that it takes longer for them to come back. When it's a sexual breakup, it's one of those things where you probably could reach out at any time. After maybe 6 months or a year, because it takes them a while. They have to get over you, but you could probably reach out to them at any time, and they're just like, oh yeah, I remember you. That was a good time. Now, that's granted that they don't have somebody else fulfilling them at that point. No pun intended, but or pun intended. But I think that the challenge in what happens after a breakup is really about how the people look at each other. So the more hostility there is the more things are going to dissipate, and it's going to take a while. The less hostility there is, things might take a while, but it's one of those things where that's just the grieving process for what happened before. Because I think you said it in a previous episode that every breakup there's a grieving process. There's sort of an acceptance. You have to come to acceptance that the relationship you had is done. And now you have to look at life anew and what's out there for you. But the issue with they all come back, don't they, is the fact that what's out there for you isn't any better than what you left, is it?
Here's the thing. Hostility is a word you used. Let's just, because there's a lot of different angles here, so let's just use that one. So, this is real. There could be a person that has not had a lot of partners, right? Sexual partners. And let's say they've had two and they're 30. They had like their first childhood boyfriend, then they had the one that they thought they were going to marry. I'm just trying to paint a picture of this person's personality type.
Right.
That person goes through that second breakup. So the first one, you're in high school, things are going to last forever, and it doesn't. Second one, it's after college. You're like, oh, we're on our way. We start now. We'll have our family, but what have you. It doesn't work out. You know what's possible? That person sleeps with a third person the very next week. And here's why. It was so heavy to lose. The first one you chalk up to, well, I was a kid.
Right.
The second one is like, I thought this was it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the therapeutic thing to do, or some people think it is to do something totally unlike yourself.
Right.
You know how many people have opportunistic sex?
Yeah.
Like, there are people that are sleeping with people strictly based off timing.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I use this example because for the promiscuous person, it's not abnormal.
Right.
So I'm using this example because this is somebody that, to deal with their struggle, their pain, out of a difficult or hostile situation, they go and do something completely out of character.
Right.
And you've heard things about, like, a woman gets their heart broken, they cut their hair off.
Right. Right.
In their mind, this other guy that broke my heart loved my long hair, I'm going to cut it. I'll show him. He's not even in your life anymore.
Right.
But it's a form of control,
Yeah.
they feel. Mm-hmm. Some gain weight. Some go lose weight.
Right.
Some relocate.
Right.
There are people that would, like, change coasts.
Right.
East to west.
Just to get away from the situation and the memories.
So, what happens when they come back? That person might have changed. Mm-hmm. So the same scenario I just painted, this guy that broke her heart comes back.
Yeah.
You know, And now she's had a couple of flings. And did she like the way the flings made her feel? Did they make her feel cheap? Did they make her feel empowered?
Right.
She might have had those flings and said, you know what? Wow, I just had sex with these 2 guys in 3 weeks. And I don't want to see them anymore. And it feels so easy to not have the stress. Because before, the first 2 guys I shared my body with, it was this long, drawn-out relationship that didn't work out.
Right.
I just had these 2 flings, and I'm chilling. I don't have to call them anymore. I don't have to return any texts. So when the guy comes back, or when the person comes back, in what situation do you find them in? Let's take a break.
All right, we're back. This is Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Pat, you gave me a couple of scenarios, and I'm going to go with one. You break up, and 4 years later, your ex calls you out of the blue, and she just wants to shoot the breeze with you. But you're saying that underneath that, she really wants to know if there's a chance to get back together.
I will say this. Usually there's some kind of motive.
Right.
Some motive might be guilt. Like, if the ex broke up with you and, like, knows that they really hurt you.
Yeah.
They might be living with... They may not want you back at all, but they're like, man, I just want to make sure that this person's okay. I really did them dirty.
Yeah.
Like, I feel bad that I could have been honest earlier.
Right.
You know? But to answer your question, yeah, it could be that it's basically an interview to find out what they really want to know.
Right. So that's one particular scenario that you could be aware of. Now, what if it's the reverse? You broke up with someone, and years later you're calling them. And obviously you have motive. And they obviously have moved on with their life, but at the same time, they're happy to hear from you, and they're trying to play it cool. They're hoping that it could lead to something, but at the same time, they don't necessarily want to let you know. I mean, how do you play that?
Well, what's going to happen after the pleasantries?
Yeah.
Let's meet up.
Yeah.
And right away,
yeah,
both parties are going to know if this is going somewhere or not.
Right.
Here's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
When you reach out to somebody after a long stretch of time,
yeah,
and that person speaks to you, and you can tell. So here you are thinking, like, on your end, you're like, think about them every day for years.
Right.
You had other relationships, whatever, but they never left your mind.
Yeah.
And when you last spoke with this person, they were just as into you as you're into them.
Right.
So you're thinking, as you're going through your life, you're thinking they're going through their life thinking about you.
Right.
And talk about a humbling experience.
Yeah. When
you reach out to that person, and they're treating you like paint on a wall.
Right.
Like, and you can tell. It's not an act.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care.
Right.
Case in point, you begin to reminisce. And remember the time we went to, Jamaica?
Right.
Remember the time we went to Botanical Garden and had lunch or whatever? And she's like, we did that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Not trying to play you, but genuinely.
Right.
It has been flushed.
Down the toilet.
And hanging up that phone at that moment.
Yeah.
Humble pie, my friend. And then one of two things happens. They either don't call again, or they convince themselves that they have to just work on the person, and they keep calling.
Right.
Now you become a stalker.
Right.
Because the conversation can end, well, you know what, maybe we should get together sometimes. The person that you called, kind of like in generic fashion, says, yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't even mean it.
Right.
You know how people say, hey, how's your day going? Fine. You might have just had a shitty day, but you're programmed to just say fine.
Right.
So maybe when that person makes a suggestion, hey, let's hang out. She's like, oh, sure, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
this guy takes it seriously.
Yeah.
You know, now you find out where she works, flowers to the office, and she's like, I gotta get rid of this dude. Like, look, they all come back, don't they?
Yeah.
It can go a lot of different directions. And
Right.
if it goes awry, you have to relive pain all over again. What if you were the one that inflicted the pain the first time?
Right.
Now 4 years later, you're the one with egg on your face.
Right.
It's tough, man.
So the challenge with letting go, you break up with somebody because you think that there's a better world out there. But at some point you realize that the world is what it is, and the reason why you got with the person in the first place was because there was something about them that, you know, was different. And, you know, now years later, you miss that opportunity. You want to rekindle it. You realize that they were good to you. So why are we not able to realize that before the breakup? Why are we not able to identify that, wait a second, we're having problems in this relationship. How do we adjust? How do we, you know, communicate and try to figure things out?
Timing is everything.
Okay.
And not just the date on the calendar, you know, like your mental state.
Yeah.
You know, let's say you're ascending in an acting career. You know, your entire life is making it as an actor, right? And you're not trying to socialize. You're not trying to have a relationship. You don't care about sex because you figure I'm going to have all the sex, social life, relationships that I need once I make it.
Right. Right.
You meet this great person that wants all the above. You're like, nope, I am singularly focused on making it. Now, a few years later, you made it. And now, you go looking for that person. But she went and found somebody else.
Right.
You know? So I think timing is a big thing. And I think we all mature at different paces, man. Like, you know, no one's wrong to want what they want.
Yeah.
But what you want has to align with what someone else wants.
So I'm gonna throw this at you. You know, you're in a relationship, you're giving it your best, you've leaned in, and the other person's never fully committed. So now, you break up, you come back together in the future. Obviously, the person who's never fully committed, you know, it's on them. So what you know, they basically now have to decide, you know, what are they bringing to the table, right?
Yeah, but back to the original thing with the commitment. You know, people don't take too kindly. Like when you make someone your priority,
Yeah.
and they just view you as an option,
Yeah.
those are some of the hardest to come back from.
Yeah.
Because there's scar tissue there.
Right. Right.
So even if the person that wasn't all dialed in is now dialed in, the first person has a bad taste in their mouth from when they gave it their all.
Yeah.
I think that one has a very weak chance of success.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right. Take a break. We'll be right back. All right. We're back. So, Pat, let's take this to another level. You are into kinky sex.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's define kinky, right?
Okay.
Because there's people walking around this earth thinking a blowjob is kinky,
Okay.
right? So we're talking about,
Bondage.
you know,
We're talking about.
bondage, group sex, you know, public displays of affection, sex parties,
Right.
you know, fetishes,
Mm-hmm.
S&M. All right.
Yeah.
Table
So
that.
so
Okay.
so we're talking about, you know, you're into the life. You're into, you know, much more. I'm not going to call it bizarre. It could, you know, bizarre could be a part of it, but
Unique.
more exploratory.
Unique, uncommon.
And one of you can't get down with what's going on.
Again, pause. Refuses to get down.
Right.
Isn't down.
Right.
Can't get down. Feels incapable. Feels inadequate.
Right.
Or is a prude, closed-minded.
Right.
Like any version of
Right.
it, you're not down for that life.
Right.
All right. Yeah.
Right. So one of you, decides that you're not down, and you wind up breaking up.
Because of that.
Because of that, right? Now, years later, you're like, oh, I'm with it now.
Choke me, smack me, tie me up, beat
Right.
me, bring her, bring him.
Right.
Let's do it.
Yeah, but at that point, the other person has moved on. They've, obviously got a new life. So how does that work?
Here's how I believe it should work.
Yeah.
Submissive.
Okay.
Come on your hands and knees.
Yeah.
Pun
Intended.
thoroughly intended.
Yeah.
If you're not down and you want to be down now, you have to come on your hands and knees, whether it's literally or not, or figuratively, and be like, look, I was a pup. I wasn't ready. I want it all now.
Yeah.
That's your only shot.
Right.
You can't, this version of They All Come Back, Don't They? You can't come with the ploys, the tricks. Nah, you got to come straight with it.
Right.
Because it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like that breakup wasn't a breakup. It wasn't like an emotional breakup or infidelity. It was, you weren't on the same wavelength.
Right.
So when you come back, if you come back, don't come back trying to impress anybody.
Yeah.
Like don't come back saying, here's what I've done since you. I'm ready for you now.
Right.
Come back saying, I want you and I want it all with you. Now if that person is like, what makes you think you're ready? Say, I'll show you.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Interesting.
And I mean, at least if you came back to me,
Right.
that's what I would want.
Okay.
And if I was the one that wasn't down, I would completely humble myself, and that's how I would bring it to the person.
So let's bring it back to a regular relationship. Obviously, I use the kink from, and we'll get back to, the alternate lifestyle and the challenges. But let's bring it into a regular relationship. You're with somebody, and again, two people have a relationship together, but there's always one person that's giving more than the other. And, it could be that one of you doesn't have the same interest level in the bedroom, or that you have issues that you have brought from past relationships that you can't get past in the bedroom, or even more so that you just really haven't fully committed to the relationship the way the other person has. You may want to, but at the same time, because of everything you've been through, you're just really kind of waiting and seeing.
Okay.
So you've never dialed in. The other person's dialed in. Now, you look at exactly what you're saying, from, the kinky style of, the person isn't ready yet. That's really what it is. They think they're ready, but they're not. Now, you break up. Years later, you come back, you're ready. What happens?
So the person that wasn't dialed in
Right.
now comes back?
Yeah, and they say, I'm ready. I realize that, you really, gave me the best of everything. And, I want to try again.
I believe chemistry is an impossible thing to create.
Okay.
I believe you either have it or you don't.
Right.
And I believe, like I mentioned earlier, timing is everything. I think it has a low probability of working.
Yeah.
They may sleep together and stuff, but in terms of it working,
Right.
and it's continuous, I think it's a low probability because that person that you're coming back to has to feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this, though.
Yeah.
There's another version of They All Come Back, Don't They? Which is bumping into someone in the street,
Okay.
on an airport,
Okay.
another city, you're on vacation, you see somebody, or you run into someone who knows that person, a
Right.
mutual friend or associate, and now you're hearing all about that person. The things you're hearing pique your interest. And in today's world, of course, social media posts and updates.
Right.
So I think in those situations, a person can be fine with the breakup
Yeah.
and even not even thinking about the other person anymore.
Right.
But one of these triggers occurs.
Right.
You run into someone, you see somebody else talking about them, or social media posts, but even something like a movie you guys saw together, or a song that was prevalent or popular rather when you guys were together. So there might be a trigger that sparks the call
Yeah.
or the text. Now it's, hey, you know what? I heard that song that, remember we were in New Orleans and we danced to that?
Yeah.
Remember we were in, San Francisco and now it's a memory that triggered it. And I believe that sometimes that call might be an innocent call.
Yeah.
Now, what comes from it, we'll see. But, when people come back, you never know what brought them back. And it
Right.
could be something that simple, is my point.
Before we take a break, I want to actually take this to the fact that, like, recently, I think Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston announced that they got back together or something after years and years and years. But the point that I bring that up is the fact that it doesn't matter how long the time between when you break up and you rekindle is. What matters is the fact that if you had something strong, something true, something, really, really authentic, you could probably rekindle it at any time, but it's to your point of its timing. So the two people have to be aligned at the same time when that comes back. So the person who comes back, it's all in, hey, how are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Maybe the person is married with kids or anything else. And how they respond to that in terms of, I'd really like to maintain a friendship. We fell out of contact, but, I want to, keep in touch with you. Or something like that.
Well, you want to go to a break now? I got one more.
Okay, let's go to break. We'll be right back.
All right, we're back, people. Let's talk about the motivation of coming back.
Okay.
We've done that, but we've done it really based on feelings.
Yeah.
And in some cases, physical needs. A person can be motivated by money.
Yeah.
A person might be down on their luck and knows that their ex is doing well. So whether they're the ones that did the breakup or not, for financial stability, they go back to the person.
Right.
The person might not be struggling down on their luck. The person might just be greedy.
Right.
I have all of this. I want more. My ex has a lot of money. And you have to be wary of these pitfalls.
Right.
Because you can get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And I'm not down for that. So there are people that will come back to you and they're motivated by something other than, because we just discussed all these emotional scenarios. People can be motivated by things other than that.
Right.
Just motivated by money.
Right.
Also, guilt and or family. Like a person is like, you know what? I don't want to be with him. I don't want to be with her. But it's killing my kids that we're not together.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back.
Right. Right.
That relationship is not going to work.
Right.
But for whatever reason, you've decided, well, I'll rather be unhappy living there than have my peace of mind and live elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it could be because of the kids are not taking it well. It could be because of just how you were raised. Like, you might have a very traditionalist mentality where you're not trying to think outside of that.
Yeah.
You might have witnessed your parents be miserable for 50 years together, but because of that, you think it's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
People go back for reasons other than how their heart feels.
Okay. So getting back to kink, because this is where I was going with all of this, is that you have a extraordinary lifestyle. You have a partner who really wants to. Okay, and let me preface this by saying that maybe their relationship started with an alternative lifestyle, and the one person wanted it to grow and the other person really didn't. So the part of the reason that the breakup occurred is because the difference between the two in terms of their interests in the bedroom just were not aligned. So now, years later, you come back because outside of the sex, the relationship was great. And the person who now, wants to come back realizes, hey, I'm willing to make sacrifices just to have you because you were so good to me. And my reasons for not being with you were because I was just uncomfortable with this. So I've gotten over that, and now I want to be together again. The challenge there is, obviously you're earnestly trying to come back to that person because they really meant something to you. But the other person might not, may or may not. And you kind of alluded to this, is that it's really a challenge to communicate that with brevity because you're afraid of the rejection. So, what are some of the ideas, clues that, somebody could, for our listeners' sake, take away from this in terms of, if they're dealing with a situation where they've broken up with somebody and they really miss them and they'd love to, try and rekindle something, but they're afraid. They don't want the rejection.
So I wouldn't say to have it scripted before you call or contact them, because that, it won't work and it won't be genuine. It won't come across genuine. So I wouldn't do that. What I would do is, this is going to sound far easier than it is. Just go with the flow. I would relax, whatever it takes to relax you before reaching out, whether it's a drink, whether it's masturbation, whether it's go to the gym, go bowling, whatever you do to get your mind in a good place.
Yeah. Then,
when you're comfortable, you're not rushed, you're not overlapping, reach out.
Yeah.
When you reach out, probably going to do it electronically today, text, email, what have you. When you end up speaking, that might be in person, that might be over the phone, whatever. I would go with the flow and not force it. If there is no flow and you can tell that this person just meant you to be cordial or just as responsive, just to be polite, do the pleasantries and abort. Exit stage left.
Yeah.
Because, I don't think as adults, we're not talking about children here.
Yeah.
Even though adults have some difficulty communicating at times, I think as an adult, you have a gut feeling, have the conversation now if it's flowing and just easily transitioning from one subject to another.
Right.
At some point, either it will come up or you can say, look, here's how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So my answer to your question, clues, tips for our listeners, if you have a motivation, if you're motivated, to reach out to an ex, get your mind right first, then do it, and when you do it, pay attention. Don't do it and flood the person and overwhelm them. Hey, how you doing? You know what? I'm ready now for a threesome.
Right.
Like, come on, man. Like, and, same token, don't beat around the bush for 3 hours either.
Yeah.
Have a cool conversation, and what will be, will be. But I will say this, when given the opportunity, just be honest.
I'm going to feed off that and tell you that the other thing is that it's more than just one conversation. I think the mistake that a lot of people make is that if you call someone up and based on where they are in life, they give you the cold shoulder, The truth is, it just might be that moment. And, they may also be, still resenting the breakup or something like that.
Or just processing the fact that you guys, they might have thought you were never going to speak again.
Right.
You know?
So usually it takes a couple of times. And so going to, because again, we're talking about, especially if it's like, the fireworks in the bedroom, is really something that you miss. A big part of that is being honest with them about what it was, from that standpoint, because it may start off as a booty call. I mean, you got to start off somewhere.
Right.
But, the reality is that you can't limit yourself in terms of like, look, let's just start by, having sex again and seeing where it goes. Because if the fireworks, happen again, then obviously you have a chance to build off of that. And I think that's the other thing about They All Come Back, Don't They? You started the relationship based on an interest in some type of fireworks happening. And over time, the fireworks dissipate like they do in all relationships. But the difference between the relationships that stay together and the ones that break up and eventually you go through this process is the fact of communication and identifying, hey, the fire has diminished. How do we rekindle it? What do we need to do to bring things back to another level, to the same level, or take it to another level? And on top of that is the fact that when you go through challenges in a relationship, whether it's a marriage or just a long-term relationship, however long it is that the extent of the breakup, the checking out, the actual walking away and going in a different direction can still be mended if you're true to the other person, in the sense that you're not walking away from the overall relationship. You're just walking away from the romantic being together part of the relationship. So this is hard for some people to comprehend, but you can still stay friends. You may have to have a cooling off period, but you can figure out how to be like, you know what? I really like you as a person. We didn't work out as a couple, but, that doesn't mean that we couldn't have something in the future. We just don't have it right now. And so therefore, you move on with your lives, but you stay friends with the hopes that at some point in the future, there's a possibility that you could get together.
Personality based, has a lot of merit. Personally, I've never been good at being friends with people I was with.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it's all been like done. Like, I haven't rekindled old flames and haven't revisited them.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people that can take that advice you just gave. One more thing I'll mention is don't interrogate. When I said go with the flow, there's a lot of things you want to know. Where they are in life, where they're working, are they committed to somebody else, do they have children, where do you live, whatever. Don't laundry list your questions, right? Like, these are things you want to know, but allow them to come up on their own. Now, you can ask a few specific questions, but I think if the conversation is going well, or conversations are going well, I think they'll be revealing on their own. Like, I don't think you want to give anybody the feeling that you're interrogating them.
Right. All right, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. So, Pat, I want to wrap this up and talk about the fact that the breakup always comes down to one person has decided to move on because the other person is no longer attractive enough to stay with. And that's a harsh statement, I know. But the point behind it is that you don't stay in a relationship if, things are not going well. You stay in a relationship if you think that there's something worth keeping. But if there's nothing worth keeping, if you no longer think that there's anything there to salvage, you check out. However, after a while of being, separate from each other, you then have all the positive memories, all the good times. You forget about the bad times, and that's when you might want to check back in. So they all come back, don't they? Is really about the fact that the breakup was about one of you checking out because you didn't see the attraction in the other person anymore. But once you get past that initial loss of attraction, if the other person has a comeback, you come back.
Not attractive enough. You see, it has to be, and you talked about people leave because they don't think the relationship is worth it. Like it's
Right.
not going anywhere. You know, that may be hard to gauge. There are people that have a very low threshold. Every single relationship, people that have been together for decades that are generally happy, people together a few weeks. You know, wherever you fall, it's not all going to be roses. So there are some people that bail at the first sign of trouble and live to regret it. So yes, you're right. People leave if they think it's not going anywhere, it's not worth it. You know, but there are some people that stay too long.
Right.
Some that leave too early. So I think that statement, while it's accurate, it's hard to gauge because everybody's gauge or meter is different, and I think people get it wrong a lot. You know, people leave and regret it a lot. People stay and regret it a lot. Like there's no exact science, and I think it's. And we kind of tried to put it in a capsule in the show. I think it's really hard to gauge because some of the strongest relationships, if we talk to people, if you are very close to them, or some are open book and they're shared anyway, but they might tell you that they're so happy right now and they're glad they worked things out without ever leaving because they stuck it through.
Right.
Right. And there are others that are like, man, I should have left 6 years ago.
Right.
So that, what you just said, I think is very, very difficult to gauge. And as far as memories go, everything is associated with an emotion. So the memories that a person focuses on are based on the strength of the emotion attached to the memory. So there might be dozens of great vacations and trips and happy times and one moment of pain. And that moment of pain totally supersedes the rest.
Right.
Like the relationship is over and years have passed. That person doesn't remember Hawaii. They don't remember Italy. They don't remember this restaurant, that restaurant, this walk in the park, this sexual session, the birth of your children. They don't remember anything.
Right.
But they remember that time you put your hands on them, or they remember the time you embarrassed them or hurt their feelings. So again, even that, it's how we rank or rate, or it's the potency of the memories.
Right.
And there's a lot of layers to this, man. So, I just think if you're the one that's coming back, that's why I said get your mind right and go ahead and go back and see what happens. Take your chance, shoot your shot. If you're the one that's being reached out to and you're feeling somewhere in you that you want to know what's up with this again, give it a chance. If you're being reached out to and you know good and well that there's nothing there anywhere in your system, in your body, in your mind, in your heart, don't waste the other person's time.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
All right, we'll be back. All right, we're back. Pat, I don't give a fuck about status. And here's what I mean. I've talked about this before, but I'm taking a different slant on it this time. Status has to do with where you are in the big scheme of things in life in terms of have you made it successfully or not. And what we fail to understand is that the most important thing in terms of status is your internal happiness. If you are a happy person who understands that being healthy, having loved ones, and the bare necessities of life are the basic needs of life, and you are happy with that, you have as much status as a billionaire times 20. Because the responsibilities that come with status, when you add all the material things and all the physical resources that are required, that happiness that person who has the basic necessities and has that happiness, that is priceless. They don't have the stresses that complicate life and subdue happiness. So we have to really look at status in terms of how it relates to happiness. If your status, your Facebook status, is that you're feeling happy, that's rich, that's wealthy, that's power. And the more that we're able to equate our wealth with our overall mindset of being happy and being in control of the basic needs of life and being able to take care of, the things that are important to us, that is an incredibly powerful status. Status, when it comes to being wealthy and having cars and mansions and money in the bank and all of these things, is not worth anything if you are truly not happy, number one, but number two, if you're really not making a difference with it. That's my IDGF.
Yeah, it comes down to the value system. And unfortunately, you always hear people say, such and such, like Kobe Bryant died, right?
Yeah.
Sad day for all of us, for the world. And what do you hear? People say, it makes you, refocus on what's important. I hate that.
Yeah.
You should be focused on what's important.
Every day.
How many people die all the time? It took Kobe Bryant dying or some other tragedy. People dying now because of coronavirus. You see things on the news, people getting shot, killed. What? It takes these incidents for you to focus on what's most important. And if you're smart enough or wise enough to focus on what you just said, your own mental and physical health, and that of those around you, and try to make a difference with the resources you do have, people actually will envy you.
Yeah. That's
the true status symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. My PSA is about opening your mind to relativity. Another expression, and I realize all expressions have origins, but, you never know such and such until you walked a mile in somebody's shoes. Let me tell you something. I don't believe, and I want your opinion on this, but I don't believe you have to walk in someone's shoes to have a general idea of some shit.
Yeah.
You have to walk in my shoes to feel exactly what I'm feeling. You have to walk in my shoes to know exactly what I'm going through. But you don't have to walk in my shoes to have common sense and to generally be able to open your mind and gauge or gather what it is I'm going through.
Right.
So people are so self-serving, and oftentimes their prism is so narrow, and the only thing they can see is their reflection. And it really annoys me. So try opening your mind to relativity. You don't have to be poverty-stricken to understand that being poor must suck. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't have to be broke to kind of feel what it's like to not know what your next meal is coming from.
Right.
You don't have to have a broken heart to feel for your friend or colleague or associate who has a broken heart.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to lose a parent or a pet to death to see the pain on somebody else's face. And I think too often people give a shoulder shrug to things that are not happening to them directly.
Yeah.
And it's not until something bad happens to them that they suddenly have this epiphany.
Right.
I think that's a cop-out, though. I think it's bullshit. I think you really have to have a sibling die to feel compassion for your friend who's lost their sibling?
Right.
That's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's a little bit too deep for some people. So, do you have to be unemployed and struggling to feel for the person that got laid off, that has to take care of a family?
Right.
I just think if you just open your mind, be relative, to relativity, maybe you might be able to then, if you can do that, maybe you'll be a better person. And maybe now when somebody comes to you, you have something to offer them. And I'm not talking about offering them money or a place to stay. You don't even have to do all of that. Maybe your energy would be a little bit better if you open your mind to relative thoughts.
I have to, say that not only is that really important, but, the challenge in terms of relative thoughts is, again, take it back to the relationships of, they all come back. One person leaves because they're looking at that other person differently. And they now, see a separation in terms of where they are in life and where the other person is in life. And when they come back, they're hoping that, they've got the same experience as the other person now. Or that they've got enough experience to be able to share with the other person, hey, I wasn't ready before, but now I'm ready. So now, we can have something. And, that's, I think, something that, again, how people associate being able to have common ground with somebody that, to try and talk to them, to influence them, to persuade them, is what you're really talking about. That they feel like they have to go through the same experience in order to have something in common with someone. Where the truth is that you don't have to have the same experience. What you have to have is empathy for, the person. And, Pat, I just want to point this out that, we talked about a tough subject today in terms of, you break up and it didn't work. People get together all the time, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Oftentimes it doesn't work. But the reason why it doesn't work is not because it couldn't work. 99 out of 100 times it doesn't work because you're not communicating, because you're not on the same wavelength, because there's a different value system between the two people, as you said, and you're not willing to make it work. You're not willing to sacrifice your own viewpoints and your own processes of how things should work and really listen, not just to the other person, but to yourself. And, I think that's what we're talking about when we say they all come back, don't they? Is that invisible string is you're finally starting to listen to what you had.
Yeah, it's amazing how much can be accomplished when you just think.
Yeah.
Think, be aware, and be receptive.
All right, this has been another episode of Fun and Truth in Black and White with Pat and Jay. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We love y'all.
As always, peace and love.